Hare Krishna. I'm especially happy to address those in Atlanta because it's, as you've mentioned, it's part of my governing body commissioner responsibilities. And I would like to especially focus upon Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu because this is the season for the Panchatattvas appearances. Last week we've had the appearance of Srila Advaita Acharya Prabhu. This week we have the appearance of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And coming next month is Gaur Purnima, the appearance of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So it behooves us to understand the Panchatattva. They can be very mysterious, even for those hailing from India. In fact, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself sometimes is said that he's not completely known throughout India. Therefore, I find this series that you're doing, focusing on teachings of Lord Chaitanya, that book written by Srila Prabhupada, I find this series to be very important. And I've been told that you're now on chapter 17, which presents Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu as indeed Swayam Bhagavan. That means the original personality of Godhead. So someone hearing that may say, wait a minute now, is this polytheism? There's Krishna, and now you say there's Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead? Yes, this is one of the greatest mysteries of bhakti. You see, as I often explain, very loosely, and speaking generally, we say that Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya, is an avatar of Krishna. That's all right in general speaking. But if you want to be more precise with your tattva, with your scientific understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, then you are aware that both Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Krishna are the Supreme Personality of Godhead in different roles. And this is inconceivable. You might say, well, who is the original? Is it Krishna or is it Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? Both are the original. The original appearing, existing eternally in two different roles, which are interlinked, interlocked, but still their leela, their pastimes, are different. So let's go deeper into this mystery. I like how Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, explained the situation. He says that when Krishna wants to feel separation from himself, when Krishna wants to feel and experience what it's like to be his own devotee, undergoing separation from him, then Krishna appears as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu wants to be the supreme enjoyer, then he appears as Krishna. So one set of Leela, Gaur Leela, is all about feeling separation from Krishna, love in separation, Vipralamba Seva. The other set of Leela, Krishna Leela, is all about Krishna demonstrating that he's the supreme enjoyer. So this is the mystery of Lord Caitanya. It's not a polytheistic mystery. It is diversity in unity and unity in diversity. Certainly we need to understand this when grasping the reality of Lord Caitanya and Krishna, but we also need to understand this unity in diversity and diversity in unity when we try to fathom what is the Panchatattva, the supreme absolute truth in 5 features. So I've been explaining, and some of you have already heard, that impersonalists propound that there's just oneness, monotonous oneness. They can't account for all the variety, and therefore they say, actually the variety doesn't exist. There's just pure oneness. In this way, there is no Krishna beyond what they consider to be a material phenomenon. And many of you know, who have been studying teachings of Lord Caitanya, this attitude is so offensive. You wouldn't like someone to dismiss all the variegatedness of your life, all the personalities and relationships in your life as just zero. Even though someone may be frustrated due to so many relationship collapses and family strife, still you wouldn't want that person to say, well, your relationships, your family is all zero. But this is what impersonalists do when they try to apply their mundane conceptions to the realm of Krishna's pastimes. In order to understand the complete supreme absolute truth, we need to deal with both perspectives. Krishna as a supreme enjoyer and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu as the devotee. Krishna in the role of a devotee experiencing the highest love for Krishna. We have to have a sense of wonder and fascination. That love of Krishna is so exquisite that the Supreme Beloved, Krishna himself, wants to know, what is it like to love me? What is it like to be attracted to me? What are my devotees tasting in me? You see, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And he notices that the bhaktas, the devotees, enjoy more than him by being his servants, by being in love with him. So how then can Krishna be the supreme enjoyer if his devotees enjoy more than him by being devotees? Krishna resolves this conundrum by appearing as his own devotee to taste love of himself. This is so fascinating and so wonderful. The supreme enjoyer is letting you know that the topmost pleasure is to be a servant devotee, not to be the controller. In fact, when you read Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, you find confidential information of how all the incarnations of Godhead would rather be devotees than to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the devotees taste something so exquisite that even the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself wonders about it. What's it like? What are they experiencing? But as we pointed out, nevertheless, Krishna maintains his title as a supreme enjoyer by becoming a devotee. And that is the mystery of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we can go deeper in that most of you are aware of Radha and Krishna. You see their deities in the temple. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Krishna combined. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. When you want to understand Lord Chaitanya at the deepest level, you're understanding that he's a combination of Radha and Krishna. When Radha and Krishna become one, they are Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes it's stated, when Krishna wants to enjoy, he manifests his pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani. But Krishna always wants to enjoy. But we say when, just because our intelligence and our statements are framed by time, past, present, and future. But in the spiritual reality, there's no past, present, or future. Krishna eternally enjoys, and therefore Radha and Krishna are eternal. But just for the sake of our understanding and comprehension, we say, when Krishna wants to enjoy. But there's never a time that Krishna doesn't want to enjoy or does not enjoy. That's a little hard for us to understand, because for our little tiny, paltry, minuscule so-called enjoyment, we have to work so hard. We have to go through so many ordeals, so many struggles, tolerate so much just to get a drop of so-called satisfaction and fulfillment. And we take that as normal. Krishna's enjoyment is impeccable and unlimited and ever expanding. He manifests his own pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani. That means he's still self-sufficient. He never goes outside of himself to enjoy, because the pleasure potency is his. Still, though, at the topmost understandings of bhakti, we know that Krishna can come under the control of the pure love, especially of his pleasure potency personified, Srimati Radharani. So this is what makes all these intricacies and flavors and relationships are what makes bhakti so fascinating. The more we take an interest in relationships on the spiritual plane, relationships that are present in Gaura Lila and Krishna Lila, the more we understand the transcendental reality. Because unconsciously we're affected by monism, voidism, impersonalism. It's hard for us with our material intelligence to grasp that there's variegatedness, variety, diversity on the spiritual platform, because we're so frustrated with our failures to enjoy material diversity. And so we speculate intuitively, it seems. It seems so natural. The Supreme Absolute Truth is just monotonous, homogeneous oneness, the all-pervading oneness, Brahman. Yet in our own life, What are we looking for? We're looking for the flavors of relationships. We're looking for the taste of personalism. So we're crazy. Yes. To live material life, you have to be crazy. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean crazy according to how is measured by a mental institution or a psychologist or psychiatrist. Crazy in terms of our whole loving endeavor, our endeavors for love. We're so attached to being loved and to be able to love someone, yet we have no interest in the ultimate loving affairs. So that is the secret of Gaura Lila and Krishna Lila. Lord Chaitanya has his pastimes. Krishna has his pastimes. But Lord Chaitanya does not often reveal himself as Krishna. He likes to be undisturbed in his role as a devotee. He's relishing that role. And so often, when his associates in Gaura Lila would say, oh, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya would block his ears. What is this blasphemy? Oh, Vishnu, save me from hearing this blasphemy. One example comes to mind. Lord Chaitanya and his associates were at the home of Srivas Thakur, one of the members of the Panchatattva. And Srivas Thakur and the other associates of Lord Chaitanya started glorifying Lord Chaitanya, discussing his unlimitedly glorious qualities. It was like their tongues could never reach the end of describing Lord Chaitanya's glories. They were experiencing the real purpose of the tongue. We may not think about this, but the real purpose of our tongue is to always describe Krishna's glories and to taste food that has been offered to Krishna with pure love and devotion. This is the purpose of our tongue. So they were experiencing that, speaking of the unlimited glories of Lord Chaitanya's qualities. What was Lord Chaitanya's reaction? He said, what is this? What is this? What kind of chanting is this? What kind of katha is this? Why have you become so impudent? Why are you concocting? Lord Chaitanya was demonstrating anger to set the example that in the future there would be persons who concoct and fabricate their own spiritual path, and so Lord Chaitanya wanted to set the example. He knew in the future, and right then and there during his time, there were impersonalists who said everyone is God. I am God, you are God. Om Namo Narayanaya, we're all Narayan. So Lord Chaitanya wanted to draw the line very clearly with himself as the example. How can you call me the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What is it? What are these glories you're chanting? What are these qualities you're describing? This isn't the way. And while he was displaying that anger, outside the house of Srivas Thakur, thousands of people had gathered. They wanted darshan of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And they're all roaring, Jai Krishna Chaitanya! Jai Jai Mahaprabhu! Brajendra Kumar. There are thousands are yelling this. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Who is Brajendra Kumar, the son of Maharaj Nanda? They're just roaring the secret out loud. He is Krishna. He's Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. Thousands of people are roaring this. And so Srivas Thakur, noting this situation, says to Lord Chaitanya, just see. You cover yourself at home, but outside everyone is broadcasting the realities. What are we supposed to do? Srivas Thakur said. Are you going to cover their mouth with your own hand as they're chanting Jai Jai Mahaprabhu, Vrajendra Kumar? Are you going to stop them with your own hand? And Srivas Thakur said, look, here's the situation. It's like the sun has risen and then tries to cover itself. This is what you're doing. Lord Chaitanya was very embarrassed, transcendently embarrassed. He said, oh, please, stop making these jokes. So that's an example of how Lord Chaitanya doesn't like to be disturbed in his position as Krishna, tasting what it's like to be a devotee. Let us always keep in mind that there are two sets of leelas, Gaur Leela and Krishna Leela. They're intertwined, but you always have to see the difference. Otherwise, the acharyas point out, it's offensive if you try to see Gaur Leela as the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoying. That is a great mistake. Lord Chaitanya is in the role of the devotee. So this is very important for our clear understanding. The dual reality of the one Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you can understand this, you'll be able to see clearly why being a devotee is so special. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself would rather be a devotee than the Supreme Controller and Supreme Enjoyer. Inconceivable, isn't it? And here we are, struggling so much in this temporary material body, in this temporary material world. We're struggling so much to be the enjoyer. And as I often point out, as soon as we try to enjoy in any slight way, we have to control. We have to try to control ever so slightly, though. Even so slightly, we still, if we want to enjoy, if we want to try for material happiness, there always has to be an element of control. So we're not innocent. We want to imitate the Supreme Ishwar, the Supreme Controller, and the Supreme Enjoyer. This is the story of our life. But by focusing on Gaur Leela, we see that the real pleasure is being a devotee. A pleasure so infinite that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself wants to taste it. So again, let us understand that the precise transcendental science is that Lord Chaitanya is the original personality of Godhead, and so is Krishna. They are the same personality appearing in two different ways, and they eternally exist. Indeed, Lord Chaitanya has his own section of the spiritual world on the topmost planet. Do you remember the cover of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam? The lotus flower. And there are two sections in the whirl, in the center of the lotus flower. One is Krishna's abode, and the other is Lord Chaitanya's abode. Now the Acharyas explain that when devotees reach perfection, some of them are exclusively Krishna bhaktas. They participate in Krishna Leela. Others are Gaur bhaktas. They participate exclusively in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. And some are both. They go both ways. They participate in both Leelas. So this is how variegated spiritual life always is. And all the variegatedness, all the diversity is centered upon Krishna as the enjoyer and Lord Chaitanya as the one feeling separation from Krishna. Those two dynamics are going on simultaneously and constantly. Now let's talk about the Panchatattva. In that chapter that you've been assigned, for those of you who read it, chapter 17 of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, you're presented with a summary of what's there in the 7th chapter of Adi Leela, Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. And I hope that all of you who are dedicated devotees who are trying to understand Krishna will include Sri Caitanya Charitamrita as a necessity in your life. I hope you've read Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the graduate study to Bhagavad Gita. And then there is Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, which is the postgraduate study. So if you don't have Sri Caitanya Charitamrita in your home along with Srimad Bhagavatam, you are missing out extraordinarily. Here's an analysis attributed to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said that if there's a flood, if there are waters of annihilation, and you have to swim for it to save your life, and while you're swimming, you can only carry 3 books with you. He said, bring with you as you're swimming through the waters of devastation. Bring with you Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. And then he said, but what if you're struggling while you're swimming and you can't carry those 3 books, all of them? He said, all right, let go of Bhagavad Gita. You're swimming, you're still struggling. What do you let go of next? He said, let go of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he instructed you never let go of Caitanya Charitamrita. Actually, Caitanya Charitamrita is Srimad Bhagavatam. It contains so many Bhagavatam verses, and it explains Radha Tattva, the truth in depth of Srimati Radharani, who in the Bhagavatam is introduced and who is not mentioned in Bhagavad Gita precisely. Of course, she's there as in the mention of Krishna's energies, and the advanced devotee will certainly see Srimati Radharani in Bhagavad Gita. In Srimad Bhagavatam, she's there in the 10th canto in Krishna Leela, and of course, an advanced devotee can see Krishna praying, love of Krishna, and all of Krishna's devotees in every word of Srimad Bhagavatam. But conventionally speaking, she's introduced in Srimad Bhagavatam, But in Caitanya Charitamrita, you get the complete science of the topmost relationships in the spiritual world. So Caitanya Charitamrita is Bhagavatam. And Teachings of Lord Caitanya, which some of you have been assigned to read for this discussion, Teachings of Lord Caitanya is the summary study of Caitanya Charitamrita. Please understand that. Srila Prabhupada wrote Teachings of Lord Caitanya just as he did the Krishna book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just in case he never had a chance to finish Caitanya Charitamrita or the 10th canto. And we know that he didn't finish the whole 10th canto. He departed from our physical presence before that. But Caitanya Charitamrita he did finish. So when you have Teachings of Lord Caitanya in your hand, you have a very concise summary of Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. But you should long for the whole Caitanya Charitamrita. It should be there in your home. I'm looking right now at some of your homes. I see the bookshelf of Gita Devi Dasi. I'm looking. Where is Caitanya Charitamrita? Okay, Sheila, it's on top. Okay, thank you. Everyone needs the full set. Otherwise, you're missing out on the most exquisite treasure. Now, the Panchatattva. The Panchatattva are the Supreme Absolute Truth coming as 5. As some of you have heard me explain in previous lectures. The impersonalists say everything is one. It's all just Brahman. Krishna says, enough of this nonsense. You say it's all one. I'm coming as 5. Just to challenge you monists. I'm coming as a devotee, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm coming as the intimate expansion, Nityananda Prabhu. I'm coming as the incarnation, Advaita Acharya. I'm coming as my internal potency, Shakti Tattva, Gadadhar Pandit. And I'm coming as the marginal potency, the living entities, Jiva Shakti, Srivas Thakur. And all these elements, you might say, interrelate to one another in the most transcendently exquisite way. So a devotee is fascinated by how the members of the Panchatattva interact. How Nityananda Prabhu interacts with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya. How Srivas Thakur interacts with them all and Gadadhar Pandit. It makes for the most fascinating subject matter. So the more we focus on their relationships, the more we start to see the realities of the topmost level of the spiritual world. All these 5 are one in quality. Yet, we have to point out that they have differences. And in that way, because of the differences, there can be varieties of loving flavors exchanged. Yet, qualitatively, they're all one. They're all purely 100% on the spiritual platform. But quantitatively, there are differences. And even amongst the Vishnu Tattva, the Supreme Personalities of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Acharya, there are differences. Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya Prabhu see themselves as servants of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, even though they are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, most of you know Nityananda Prabhu in Krishna Lila is Balaram. Advaita Acharya, generally speaking, is Mahavishnu, more precisely, an intimate limb of Mahavishnu. it's always wonderful to study who's who in Gaura Lila and Krishna Lila. How the same personalities take on different roles in these different sets of pastimes. You become overwhelmed with gratitude and appreciation for the ultimate reality of transcendental variety and the exchange of different flavors in different relationships. That attracts you out of your material illusion because you want relationships. Not only do you want relationships, but you want relationships with different flavors, right? Otherwise it becomes monotonous. So how can the Supreme Absolute Truth be supreme without exquisite relationships of unlimited variety and unlimited flavors? Because people don't know this, they're simply God worshippers in name only. But when it comes to the bottom line, they're entrapped by the material energy because they want flavors and they know nothing about the flavors of relationships in the ultimate reality. So this is why it's so important to understand the Panchatattva. Sometimes Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya would just jump up, leap up high in the air, shouting, "We are servants of Lord Caitanya. We are servants of Lord Caitanya. We are the servants of his servants." And then suddenly sit down and be quiet. Just like when the thousands of people were outside Lord Chaitanya's, he was staying at Srivas Thakur's home. Thousands of people were outside, and Lord Chaitanya heard their humble appeal. "Please give us your darshan. We want to make our life successful." So he did go outside and give them his darshan. Raising both hands in the air, he instructed them, "Everyone chant, Hari, Hari." So this is why Srivas Thakur and the close associates of Lord Chaitanya who were inside the house, this is why they were complaining. "You won't let us do that." Thousands of people are proclaiming you're Rajendra Kumar, that you are Krishna. You won't let us say that. And this is why Lord Chaitanya was embarrassed. Please stop making these jokes at me. So now, in the final part of our discussion today, I want to make sure we leave enough time for discussing the dynamics of the Panchatattva so that you can see Lord Chaitanya and his relationships in action. This is not just some kind of dry theology. This is not some kind of esoteric intricacy. This science of the Panchatattva is vital for our spiritual life. The Panchatattva is not some kind of abstract reality. They are doing things eternally. The more we can understand how the Panchatattva are acting, the more we can see what the true glories of bhakti are, the true scope of the society of devotees. So let me read to you from chapter 7 of Adi Lila, Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. It describes that the characteristics of Krishna are understood to be a storehouse of transcendental love. Although that storehouse of love certainly came with Krishna when he was present, it was sealed. You got that? The storehouse of love of Krishna was sealed, even when Krishna himself was present in his Leela 5,000 years ago. But when Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu came with his associates of the Panchatattva. They broke the seal. This is action. This is not metaphysical, theoretical stuff, theological vagueness. This is the most dynamic action. They broke the seal and plundered the warehouse. It's a riot. They broke all the rules. People are so bewildered by the Capitol Hill, whatever you want to call it. But it was just a tiny event compared to the spiritual riot that the Panchatattva caused. Krishna is not so merciful. You know in Bhagavad Gita what he says at the end. Sarvadharman pratyaja, mamekam sharanam vraja. You surrender to me, you do what I say. The storehouse, the warehouse is closed, it's sealed, until you make the move, you make the first move. The Panchatattva, headed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, do things completely differently. They say, forget the qualifications, forget the stipulations. We're breaking open this warehouse and distributing the contents to everyone. Let them first taste the nectar of love of Krishna, and then later we can discuss the contract. Whereas Krishna is restrictive. First you behave yourself properly, first you do this, first you do that, then later we talk about the benefits. The Panchatattva break open the storehouse and distribute the contents, saying, taste the benefits first, later we discuss the various qualifications. Both are activities of Krishna, both ways. So what I'd like you to do, when you think of the Panchatattva, headed by Lord Caitanya, see the dynamics of breaking into the warehouse, breaking into the sealed contents, and tasting. First, the Panchatattva taste. And what happens when they taste? The more they taste, the more their thirst for it grows. This is fascinating. The Krishna Trishna, the thirst for Krishna. This is what we're all yearning for. This is what makes the difference between a neophyte and a devotee who's advancing. The Krishna Trishna, the thirst for Krishna. So see the dynamics of the Panchatattva. They broke the seal, they plundered the warehouse, and they're tasting the contents of the warehouse. And they're tasting the unlimited contents, and their thirst is growing unlimitedly. So this is active. It's showing us that bhakti is dynamic. It's not meant to be just locked up for one section of society or one part of the world. It's meant... The Panchatattva are basically rioting. They're looting. They're looting the warehouse, which Krishna kept sealed. And the chief looter is Krishna himself as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his chief assistant is Nityananda, who's Balaram. So you couldn't ask for a better riot. They're plundering. Plundering means looting. They're disregarding all law and order. All of Krishna's restrictions, the Panchatattva, they've thrown it out. And they're gobbling up all the nectarian contents of the warehouse. And the more they drink, the more their thirst increases. What kind of beverage have you ever had like that? Materially, you drink something because you're thirsty and, okay, I've had enough. And also your stomach can only hold a limited amount. But the taste, the beverage of transcendental love of Krishna, you never get enough, and you have unlimited capacity. So what next in this dynamic activist program? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains in Caitanya's Charitamrita. Sri Panchatattva themselves danced again and again. By their dancing, what happens? Is it just some kind of sentimental performance? No, it is most scientific. By their dancing, they make it easier for everyone to drink the nectar of love of Krishna. Dancing is a very important part of Krishna Bhakti. And the Panchatattva themselves are showing that. They just don't want to sit on the floor. They want to raise their hands in the air and dance in ecstasy. And by that dancing, they're making it easier for everyone to be Krishna conscious. So the verse says, they danced, cried, laughed, and chanted like madmen. And in this way, they distributed love of Godhead. So this is where we're coming from. We're part of this, as followers of Lord Caitanya, we're part of this greatest riot. And remember, Krishna comes as Lord Caitanya, and he's the foremost looter. I'm going to take what Krishna keeps locked up, and I'm going to just fling it everywhere, flood it everywhere, with no stipulations. So let us consider more about the dynamics of the Panchatattva. There should be some modus operandi, some methodology for distributing the contents of the warehouse. No. Lord Caitanya and his associates said, we're not considering who's fit, who's unfit, whether this place, whether that place. No conditions. Flood everywhere, flood everyone. Can you get a feeling now, I hope, for the scope of Krishna's mission as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? Flood everywhere, flood everyone. No stipulations, no conditions, no discrimination. Let the floodwaters inundate everywhere. So the more that we take up this expansive spirit, the more we're in touch with the Panchatattva. We don't want to keep bhakti locked up, because that's not what the Panchatattva are all about. They're always breaking down barriers, breaking down, break the dam. Let everything be flooded. No stipulations, no contents of love of Krishna locked up. So the more that we as devotees participate in that kind of reality, the more happy we are. We're dealing with something, Krishna Bhakti, that's meant to be flung far and wide, endlessly. So the more we participate in that, the happier we are, because our happiness is dependent on Krishna. We cannot generate our own happiness. This is a big lesson we need to learn as we sojourn through material existence. We're not successful at all. In fact, we're failing extraordinarily as independent happiness generators. No, our happiness depends on Krishna. And here In this darkness of the age of Kali, Krishna has come as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, the other members of the Panchatattva, and you see what's going on. The most extraordinary, inconceivable dynamics, action in distributing the greatest sweetness. So what else? There's something fascinating about this plundering and distributing. We talked about how for themselves, the more the Panchatattva drank the nectar, the more their thirst increases. But that's not the only thing that's going on. The more they distribute, the more the supply increases 100-fold. Now, of you business persons in Atlanta, who runs a business like that? Whose enterprise is like that? The more product is sold, the more the supply in your warehouse automatically increases 100-fold. None of you can do business like that. But that is the business of the Panchatattva. No question of scarcity. The more they give out, the more the supply increases. So please, think deeply about these dynamics. This is bhakti activism. The spirit soul is always active. It is not passive. And during this special time of the year, in which we're celebrating the appearance of Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, we can especially aspire to increase our participation in the dynamics of flooding this world with Krishna Bhakti. And then we'll be more in touch with Krishna as himself and Krishna as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. We're not armchair believers. Well, I believe in Krishna. Who do you believe in? I have my religious beliefs. What are your religious beliefs? I worship this God. What God do you worship? This is not our portfolio. We're active members of a team that's plundering and looting and spreading the merchandise everywhere without distinction, discrimination. So that means the more that we demonstrate how Krishna Bhakti is meant for the whole world, the more we are successful. So the chapter goes on. The flood of love of Godhead swelled in all directions, and thus young men, old men, women, and children were all immersed in that inundation. And then the prediction. The Krishna consciousness movement will inundate the entire world and drown everyone. This will happen whether we see the full flood covering the world in this lifetime or in future lifetimes, but this is the reality. This is Krishna's will. And Krishna himself has come as the prime distributor. And the Panchatattva, the other members of the Panchatattva, are his agents. And this activity of distributing Krishna Bhakti to others without discrimination is so attractive that Balaram wants to take part as Nityananda. Mahavishnu wants to take part as Advaita Acharya. Become fascinated by this. Make it your life. Make it your soul. How to participate in drowning everyone. So finally, when the 5 members of the Panchatattva saw the entire world drowned in love of Godhead, and the seed of material enjoyment in the living entities completely destroyed, they all became exceedingly happy. This is a fascinating point for you to meditate on. As the spread of Krishna Bhakti increases, the seed of material enjoyment in the world automatically diminishes. We can't see this with our mundane vision. But as your vision becomes more purified, you start to see the miracle of bhakti. You see, there's the seed of material enjoyment. And by your association with the modes of material nature, which we consider just living our normal life, when actually we're shackled by Trigunamai, the three modes, the seed of material enjoyment is watered by guna sangha, association with the modes of material nature. And because of that watering process on the seed sprouts into a tree of material entanglement. And that tree of material entanglement presents the fruits of happiness and distress. Of course, we'd like to pick the fruit of happiness and forget the fruit of distress, but they come together on the tree of entanglement. And as we try to selectively eat just the fruit of happiness, and we try to cope with the fruit of distress, that means we're afflicted with material miseries, because those material miseries are part and parcel of the process of eating the fruits on the tree of material entanglement. But when there's a flood, all the seeds become inactive. They can't sprout. Too much water makes it impossible for the seeds to sprout. Just like when you fry a seed, it can't sprout. So this is the inconceivable wonder of the Panchatattva. What they're doing is the most dynamic entrepreneurial enterprise. And we should all be a part of that. And by doing our little bit, what does Srimad Bhagavatam say? Pranayar, artayar, diya, vacha. You can give your life, prana. Artayar, you can give some of your wealth. Diya, you can contribute your intelligence, your skills. Vacha, your words. Or you can do all of that. In this way, you can participate in the activities of the Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and your life will be successful. So please think about this, how you can play your role. No restrictions on who should get, where they should get it. That's the Panchatattva. Flood everyone, everywhere. Leave no one untouched. This is our heritage. This is what Krishna wants. Krishna says, surrender to me. And Lord Chaitanya says the same thing because he's Krishna. He says, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. That is surrender to Krishna. The same thing that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So I'll stop here and perhaps there are some questions. Let us see.
Hare Krishna. So if any of you have any questions, you can please raise your hands, or you can also type in your question in the chat box and we can ask the question for you. So we have one hand raised first by Krishna Sharanam Prabhu. Please unmute yourself, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for a beautiful, enlightening lecture. I have one question. As you said, Lord Nityananda Prabhu is an expansion and Lord Advaita is an avatar. So what is the difference between expansion and avatar? Thank you, Maharaj.
Very good question. Something I've thought about. Advaitacharya is known as Bhakta Avatar. And Nityananda Prabhu is known as Bhakta Sarup. Nityananda is more intimate in terms of his relation to Krishna. He's Krishna's first expansion as Balaram. Sometimes it's said that the only difference between Krishna and Balaram is what? Krishna's bluish, Balaram's whitish. Balaram wears blue cloth, Krishna wears yellow. It's often said like that in the Shastra. That's really the only difference. They're that close. Krishna Balaram ki jai. But Advaita Acharya is a bit more removed in terms of intimacy. Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu is reclining on the causal ocean. Advaita Acharya is a particular limb of Mahavishnu, responsible for, technically, Advaita Acharya deals with the pradhan, the unmanifested material energy. That's technical. So the Purusha avatars are not as intimate in relationship with Krishna as is Balaram. Krishna's always with Balaram, except at night. So this is why one is classified as Bhakta Avatar and the other as Bhakta Swarup. It's all about intimacy. Yet in Caitanya Leela you see them all interacting together, and that's another wonder of Caitanya Leela. And for me to get into that would take another hour. Another question.
Yes, this is from Veer K. Nanda Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Swamiji. I have one comment and a question there now. I really appreciate such a beautiful nectarian explanation of the tattva of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Panch Tattva, and Lord Krishna, though. It's very, very nectarian for me, though. For my understanding, Lord Krishna has a choice of either acting like a controller or a god, or acting like a devotee and enjoy it, though. And he has chosen to, or he enjoys being a devotee more than he enjoys a controller, though. So that's the way I understand. And this is just to reinforce this thought on myself. Even if Lord Krishna enjoys being a devotee rather than a controller, then why as a human being, I should be trying to act like a controller and not act like a devotee and enjoy all the bliss and the ecstasy that Krishna enjoys as a devotee there. So the question is that...
Let me comment. Your point is exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
The question I have is that, as you said, that Lord Chaitanya and Krishna, they are not different, though. And reading different context, different information about Lord Chaitanya's disappearance, though, that some text will say that he merged into Lord Jagannath, and others say that he merged into Tota Gopinath or so, though. The question I have is, does Lord Chaitanya has an eternal form, or does his form merge into Krishna and he's just in bliss and enjoying his Leela in Golok Dham?
Lord Chaitanya goes from universe to universe just as Krishna does. What does Lord Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Sahasra Yuga Paryantam. Once every day of Brahma, around midday of Brahma's day, Krishna appears, and then in the Kali Yuga coming after that Dwapara Yuga, Lord Chaitanya appears. And also Lord Chaitanya is eternally present, just as Krishna is eternally present in the topmost portion of the spiritual world. So Lord Chaitanya is not an avatar that appears and then disappears. Lord Chaitanya is the original personality of Godhead, just as Krishna is.
And where you said some devotees are eternal devotees of Lord Chaitanya and some are eternal devotees of Lord Krishna. There, so do all these devotees live at the topmost planet Golok, where Krishna has one form and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has one form, and the devotees serve each of them in their own way there?
Our eternal constitutional position is to be the servant, and some devotees are serving Krishna in his Leela on Krishna Loka, and others are serving Lord Chaitanya, and some are serving both. This is a point you'll understand more if you read Brihad Bhagavatamrita. The BBT has put out such an exquisite 3-volume version of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, presenting commentaries by Sanatana Goswami. And there it's explained how devotees can expand themselves so they can be present in multiple places at the same time. Perfect devotees can do that. So this point about devotees in Gaur Leela, Krishna Leela, and both is a technical point. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions it briefly but clearly, but it's a technical point. Yes?
I think next up we have Geeta Mataji. Geeta Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to you. Thank you so much for your darshan after such a long time. I wanted to know if you can please explain what should be the goal of a devotee? Should it be to go back to Godhead, or should it be just keep spreading Krishna consciousness?
Very nice question. Someone whose only goal in life is to assist the Panchatattva in distributing love of Krishna without reservation, that person is already back to Godhead. Going back to Godhead is not so much geophysical. It is about consciousness, because the spiritual world is pure consciousness. And so for those devotees who are so selfless in their pure devotion, and they're dedicated to carrying out Krishna's instruction as Lord Chaitanya, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. Certainly, due to that pure devotion, they're already back to Godhead, and wherever they go, they bring Godhead with them. So we aspire for that kind of pure devotion. That's why Lord Chaitanya prays in Shikshashtaka. He's teaching us, Mama Janmani Janmani Isware Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoy Tuki Twai. I don't mind birth after birth as long as I have service at Krishna's lotus feet. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his songs says, I don't mind being an insect in my next life as long as I'm an insect in the house of a devotee. That's a high realization, and it's not that we should aspire to be insects, but he's pointing out to you, if I have devotee association, meaning pure service and pure sangha and pure opportunity for hearing and chanting, I don't care what my birth is. So yes, you should do two things at once. You should aspire to go back to Godhead and aspire to serve Lord Chaitanya however and wherever he wants, and then you'll get the best. The best will be whatever Krishna wants to make of you. That's back to Godhead. And the mystery is that those who are fully and purely dedicated to spreading Krishna's glories, they're already back to Godhead. They're carrying the spiritual world with them. So these are some ultimate mysteries of bhakti. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. So I think we have one last question. This is from Yashoda Deva Prabhu. Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for always inspiring us in Sankirtana. Heard you tell these stories of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. so many dozens of times, and yet you always seem more enthusiastic every time you do so. So thank you so much. I just have a quick question that I was reading in Caitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila chapter 5. I think it's text 110. It describes how Lord Caitanya, Prabhupada says that Lord Caitanya is complete and he's relishing all the different mellows: neutrality, servitorship, fraternity, parental love, and even conjugal love. And Guru Maharaj, I don't understand how it is that Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada says that he's enjoying these mellows with his devotees. I don't understand how the Lord at Sannyasa Shiromani is having all of these different types of relationships with the devotees. It's something I've misunderstood. Could you help me, please?
Yes, he's Krishna, and Krishna is the object of all rasas, and so Krishna contains that within him. So Lord Chaitanya can take the role of a devotee in any rasa because he's Krishna who contains all the rasas. But don't try to think I'm a gopi who will be enjoyed by Lord Chaitanya. Ooh, that's a concoction. Lord Chaitanya can take the role of a devotee in any of the rasas because he contains all the rasas. But particularly, he takes the role of a certain devotee. But sometimes you'll see in Chaitanya Leela, he can act in the role of a devotee in Vatsalya, Prem, or any relationship because he contains all that. But still, he specializes in the Madhurya Bhakta. You write me later, remind me, and I'll send you a quotation which explains that more. It's a quotation by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. All right. So it's been wonderful speaking with you all about Lord Chaitanya, the Panchatattva, and I hope everyone has in their home Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. In this way, you have the greatest wealth. So please plunder that wealth. Don't be a miser. Taste the nectarian love that Lord Chaitanya is distributing, and your thirst will increase. Remember the Krishna Trishna. Thank you very much.
So I think we have Vedasar Prabhu, our temple president. I would like him to take
Oh,
over.
Vedasar Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I'm actually just coming from a program and listening to your class. And I have a quick question, Maharaj, if you could elaborate a little bit. It seems like during Mahaprabhu's time that the devotees had such cohesive relationships in assisting Mahaprabhu to end the Panchatattva, to plunder the storehouse and distribute it. Was it because of the power and the presence of the Panchatattva that there seemed to not be any or much hiccups, whereas somehow
Not so. There seemed to
as
be
time
not.
has gone,
I missed that. Hold on. There seemed to be not much what?
no hiccups. It doesn't seem like there was much hiccups because the power and the potency of the Panchatattva taking.
Well, you should remember.
The leadership of plundering the years. It seems like as time has gone by, is it the influence of Kali Yuga that we are not experiencing that same cohesive unit to plunder the storehouse, or is it just some other factors?
As Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Sakalenaha Mahata Yoga Nashta Prantapa. The effect of time makes things come in waves. And so sometimes it seems that the potency diminishes of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, and then it surges forward again. That's due to the time factor. Krishna himself doesn't cover that up. He says in Bhagavad Gita, I've spoken this before, but due to the influence of time, the purport of what I said has become lost, so I'm speaking it again. So there's always resurgence and renewal in Krishna Bhakti. And so we want to see a resurgence and renewal in Atlanta, a wonderful city. If I could expand myself, I would just base myself in Atlanta because it's full of such dynamics. It's not an ordinary city. And we need to come together and think and plan how to give everyone a chance in Atlanta to become a Krishna Bhakta. We want to break down all the barriers. No discrimination. This is a good place. This is a bad place. This person, but not that person. Yes, we have to use our intelligence for what is the most effective ways and means, but at the same time, we want our vision to be expansive. We want our vision to be broad-ranged. And so, however we can contribute to that effort with our life, with our wealth, with our intelligence, our skills, and with our words, then our life is successful. We want to break down barriers and let the flood go everywhere. No dams, no walls. The more we take up that spirit, the more you'll be able to understand the Panchatattva, and you'll see a taste of, you'll get a taste for what they did and what they're experiencing. They want us to experience that. So please, all of you in Atlanta, consider how to make sure Krishna is outside the limitations of a box and how everyone can somehow or other have a taste of the mercy of the Panchatattva headed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So I thank you all very much. I'm begging, praying when I can return again.
Yes, Maharaj, we very much look forward to having you back physically in Atlanta so that we can hear from you directly and also get your personal association and advice on how we can grow this community here in ISKCON Atlanta. We need your blessings and prayers as well so that we can continually grow and, as you mentioned, distribute this Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. So thank you very much for taking out the time and giving us your association.
Rangesh,
Yes, Prabhu.
I also wanted to take this opportunity. My video is not working. I just wanted to take this opportunity for, showing some heartfelt gratitude to Maharaj for providing such amazing leadership and spiritual guidance to the Atlanta community. Some of you may know and may not know, some of you may not know, that Maharaj has been extremely blessed with this amazing resilience and perseverance and the compassionate mercy of Srila Prabhupada, where he Prabhu, can you hear me?
We can. You cut off there a little bit.
I was just saying that how fortunate we are to have Maharaj as our guide and our shelter for the Atlanta community. And the fact that, he has been a testament to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, creating beautiful communities from scratch and really, really guiding them step by step, systematically growing the Krishna consciousness movement in the different zones that there was nothing, and he went there and he created this beautiful communities. So we feel very fortunate that he is providing that leadership and that guidance here in Atlanta. So thank you so much, Maharaj. We are extremely grateful to you for this.
I thank you all, and again, I pray for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.